We've all been there. That moment when your chest is tight, your hands are shaking, your words are burning inside of you, begging to come out. Someone said something that cut deep, that pushed a button, that made you feel smaller than you are. And everything inside of you screams, say something back. Don't let them get away with this. Fight back. Prove them wrong. And yet, that very moment, the heat, the fire, the boiling inside of you, that's the exact moment you need to be silent. Because the words that want to leave your mouth in anger are not the words of wisdom. They are the words of destruction. Think about it. How many times in your life have you said something out of anger that you later regretted? Maybe it was a friend. Maybe it was a family member. Maybe it was at work, in front of someone who was watching closely, and you thought you were just letting out steam, just getting it off your chest. But the words you said landed, and they landed hard. You can apologize afterward, you can try to explain yourself. But here's the truth, once those words are out, they can never be taken back. You don't control how they echo in someone else's heart. That's the dangerous thing about anger. It blinds you. Anger doesn't ask for your permission. It doesn't stop to check facts. It doesn't consider long-term consequences. Anger is like fire, it doesn't care what it burns, it just spreads. And if you speak while you're angry, your words become gasoline. Now, I want you to imagine this. You're in a heated argument with someone you love. They say something sharp, and it cuts. You feel that sting inside, and you snap back without thinking. You raise your voice, you choose words you wouldn't have chosen if you were calm. And in the moment, it feels like victory. It feels like you defended yourself. But when the fire cools, when the silence comes afterward, you see their face, you see their eyes, and you realize you didn't win. You lost something more valuable than the argument. You lost connection. You lost trust. That's why silence in anger is not weakness. It's control. It's choosing to hold back the weapon that could do damage, even when everything inside of you is urging you to use it. Anyone can explode. Anyone can react, but it takes real strength to stay calm when you could lash out. You see, silence and anger is not about swallowing your emotions and pretending nothing happened. It's not about being passive. It's about buying yourself time. Time to think, time to cool down, time to choose words that heal instead of words that wound. Because when you hold back, you give yourself the chance to respond with clarity instead of regret. Some of you might be thinking, but if I don't say something right away, won't people think I'm weak? Won't they think I'm letting them walk all over me? No. People don't remember the quick reaction. People remember the lasting impact. And when you speak with calm authority after the storm has passed, your words land with weight. They carry power. Silence is not about being weak. It's about refusing to let someone else control your emotions. Here's what silence does. It keeps the power in your hands. When you lash out in anger, you're no longer in control. They are. They provoked you. They pushed a button, and you gave them the reaction they were looking for. But when you stay silent, when you hold steady, you frustrate the fire, you take away its fuel. Let me give you a real example. Think of two leaders, one who loses their temper at the smallest mistake, and one who stays calm under pressure. Which one would you follow? Which one would you respect? Exactly. The one who doesn't let anger dictate their words. Because silence in that moment is not just control of your mouth, it's control of your mind, your presence, your authority. Now, I'm not saying silence means you never address what made you angry. I'm saying you choose when. You choose to speak when your mind is clear, not clouded. When your words will fix the situation, not break it further. When your tone communicates strength, not chaos. And here's something I've learned: silence teaches you about yourself. The more you practice holding your tongue when you're angry, the more you notice the patterns of what sets you off. You begin to see the triggers, the situations, the phrases that push your buttons. And once you see them, you can master them. That's how you grow stronger. So the next time you feel that fire rising, I want you to pause. Take a deep breath. Walk away if you need to. Say nothing, not because you're scared, not because you don't have words, but because you're choosing not to let anger speak for you. You're choosing to wait until your words are sharp with truth, not dulled with rage. And remember this, anyone can win an argument in the moment by yelling louder. But the real victory, that comes from the person who doesn't let the moment control them. That comes from the person who can be silent in the heat of anger and speak later when their words carry wisdom, not fire. So ask yourself, the next time anger rises, do I want to win the second, or do I want to win the long game? Because silence in that moment could save you from 1,000 regrets. And that's real strength. One of the fastest ways to lose credibility in life is to speak before you know. To open your mouth when the information isn't clear, to assume, to guess, to jump in without waiting for the full picture. And you know what happens? You reveal more about yourself than about the situation. Because when you speak without facts, you're not speaking from wisdom, you're speaking from impulse. Think about how many times we've all done this. You hear part of a story, and before it's even finished, you've already decided what it means. You add your opinion, you argue, you react, and then later, when the full story comes out, you realize you were wrong. And suddenly, your words don't just sound careless, they sound empty. People stop trusting what you say because you've shown them you speak too soon. Silence in those moments is not weakness. It's intelligence. It's patience. It's saying, I don't have all the details yet, so I'll wait. And that waiting is what protects your reputation. Because here's the truth, silence buys you time. Time to observe, time to understand, time to collect the pieces before you put together the puzzle. And when you finally do speak, your words carry authority, not guesswork. We live in a world where everyone is rushing to have an opinion. Social media rewards the fastest reaction, not the wisest one. People want to be the first to comment, the first to criticize, the first to share their take. But what does that actually get you? Temporary attention, empty validation, and sometimes a very permanent mistake. You know what stands out today? Patience, the ability to sit back, stay silent, and say, I don't know enough yet to comment. It doesn't make you look uninformed. It makes you look disciplined. Because you're not desperate to prove yourself. You're not afraid of the pause. You understand that silence and uncertainty is better than noise without clarity. Imagine this scenario: you're at work and a problem comes up. Everyone's panicking, everyone's pointing fingers, everyone wants to explain what they think happened. And you stay quiet. You listen. You gather information. You ask calm questions instead of throwing out accusations. And when the dust settles, when the facts are finally clear, you speak. And your words are sharp, clear, focused. People stop. They listen. Because while everyone else wasted energy on guessing, you saved your words for truth. That's how leaders stand out. Now compare that to the person who blurts out half-baked answers, who interrupts, who assumes they know. Even if they mean well, they look unprepared, they look careless. And worse, they lose trust. Because trust isn't built by always speaking. Trust is built by speaking when it matters, and only when you have something real to say. There's a saying, it's better to be silent and thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt. That's not about keeping your mouth shut forever. It's about choosing your timing. Sometimes silence is the smartest answer you can give because it communicates self-control. It communicates that you don't rush to judgment, that you value truth over ego. Silence also protects relationships. Think of a time when someone told you something in frustration. Maybe they accused you of something you didn't do. Maybe they painted an incomplete picture. And instead of defending yourself right away, you stayed quiet. You let them speak, you let them finish. And later, when everything came to light, the truth defended itself. You didn't need to argue, you didn't need to push back. Silence gave room for the facts to surface on their own. On the other hand, when we jump to defend ourselves without listening, when we cut people off, when we rush to correct before hearing the full story, we create walls. We show them we're not listening, we're just reacting. And that reaction often does more damage than the actual misunderstanding ever could. Here's the strength of silence. It shifts the balance of power. When you stay quiet, people wonder what you're thinking. They lean in, they wait. Silence makes people pay attention because it's rare. And when you finally do open your mouth, your words have gravity. They matter. So the next time you feel that urge to fill the silence, to jump in with an answer you're not sure about, stop. Ask yourself, do I know enough right now? Am I speaking because I have clarity or because I'm uncomfortable with silence? Am I adding truth or just adding noise? And if the answer isn't clear, stay silent. You'll be amazed at how much you learn by listening instead of rushing to talk. You'll notice details you would have missed. You'll catch patterns, emotions, intentions hidden beneath the surface. Because silence is not empty, it's full of information. And only those who can stay silent long enough get to hear it. In the long run, silence builds respect. People trust the ones who don't speak at every turn. They trust the ones who take their time, who weigh their words, who know the difference between reacting and responding. Silence and uncertainty doesn't make you invisible, it makes you unforgettable. So remember this, you don't always need to have the first word. You don't always need to answer right away. Sometimes the wisest thing you can do is pause, breathe, and wait until the truth is clear. Because silence is not the absence of an answer, it is the foundation of the right answer. And when you live like that, your words stop being noise, they become impact. And impact, not impulse, is what changes everything. Disrespect is one of the hardest things to stay silent in front of. Because everything inside of you wants to fire back. You want to prove a point, defend yourself, make sure they know they can't talk to you like that. And yet, in that exact moment, silence is your greatest weapon. Not because you can't think of a reply, not because you don't have the words, but because your silence shows something far stronger: control. When someone disrespects you, they're not just speaking words, they're reaching for a reaction. They're fishing for your energy. They're trying to drag you down into their storm to see if you'll lose your balance. And the moment you snap back, the moment you raise your voice, the moment you exchange insult for insult, you've given them exactly what they wanted. You've told them, your words have power over me. But when you stay silent, when you hold your dignity, when you let their words hang in the air without giving them oxygen, something powerful happens. Their disrespect becomes a mirror reflecting who they are, not who you are. You don't look small, they do. You don't look weak, they do. Because silence, in the face of disrespect, puts all the weight back on them. Think of a time when someone insulted you and you didn't respond. Maybe you just looked at them. Maybe you smiled and walked away. What happened? Their energy didn't land where they wanted it to. It bounced back onto them. Because disrespect only works if you accept it, and silence is the act of refusing delivery. Now, I'm not saying silence means you never stand up for yourself. There's a difference between silence as strength and silence as surrender. Strength says, I'm in control of how I respond. I won't let your words dictate my worth. Surrender says, I'll let you treat me however you want. And that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is choosing your battles wisely, choosing not to waste your voice on people whose opinions don't deserve it. Here's the truth. Not everyone who speaks into your life deserves a reply. Not everyone deserves a seat at the table of your energy. Some people talk out of their own pain, their own insecurity, their own emptiness. And when you respond to their disrespect, you're not really fighting them, you're fighting their wounds. And you will never win a war against someone else's brokenness. That's why silence is powerful. It says, I'm not lowering myself to this level. It says, your words don't define me. It says, I choose peace over pettiness. And that choice makes you bigger, not smaller. Let me paint a picture. Imagine you're in a crowded room. Someone insults you loudly, hoping to embarrass you. All eyes turn to you, waiting for a reaction. If you fire back, it becomes a spectacle, an exchange of insults, a fight for dominance. People remember the clash, not the truth. But if you stay calm, if you remain silent, if you simply hold your presence without stooping down, the silence itself becomes louder than any insult could ever be. The disrespect exposes them, not you. Silence doesn't just protect your dignity, it protects your energy. Because every time you argue with someone who doesn't respect you, you're giving away pieces of yourself. You're pouring energy into a place that doesn't return anything valuable. And over time, that drain keeps you from putting your energy into what truly matters, your goals, your growth, your peace. There's a discipline in silence. It's not easy. It's not natural. Our ego hates silence because our ego wants to be right. Our ego wants the last word. Our ego wants revenge. But your ego will never bring you peace. Only discipline will. And discipline sounds like silence in the face of disrespect. Think about the people you truly admire, the ones you see as wise, strong, grounded. Do they get dragged into every argument? Do they answer every insult?
No.
They don't waste their breath, proving themselves to small minds. They conserve their words for moments that matter. And when they do speak, people listen, because silence has given their words weight. Now, this doesn't mean silence will always feel satisfying in the moment. Sometimes silence feels like swallowing pride. Sometimes it feels like letting someone win. But here's what you have to remember, not every battle is worth winning. Some battles are designed to distract you from the war that actually matters. The war to stay focused, the war to keep your peace, the war to grow into the person you're meant to be. The person who disrespects you, they're not your enemy. They're a test. A test of whether you'll rise above or sink down. A test of whether you'll let someone else's words control you, or whether you'll master yourself. And silence is the answer key. Silence is how you pass, because the truth is people will forget the words that were said. They'll forget the exact insult, but they'll remember how you handled it. They'll remember that you didn't get shaken, that you didn't lose your cool, that you carried yourself with grace. And that memory, that impression is far more powerful than any comeback could ever be. So the next time someone disrespects you and you feel that urge rising in your chest to snap back, pause. Remember who you are. Remember what you're building. Remember that not every voice deserves your reply, and choose silence. Not because you can't fight back, but because you've already won by not needing to. There are moments in life when our emotions feel bigger than us. Fear creeps in and suddenly every decision looks dangerous. Jealousy whispers and suddenly we don't see clearly. Sadness weighs heavy and it feels like we'll never climb out. And in those moments, the urge to speak, to react, to let those emotions pour out through our words can be overwhelming. But here's the truth: when emotions control you, silence protects you. Because emotions are temporary. They come and go like storms. They rise, they pour, they rage, and then they pass. But words stay, words leave marks. Words can heal, but they can also cut, and when we speak under the full control of our emotions, we're letting the storm speak for us. And storms don't build, they destroy. Think back to a time when you let emotions drive your response. Maybe it was fear. You were scared, so you said no to something that could have changed your life. Or maybe it was jealousy. You accused someone you loved, not because you had proof, but because your insecurity spoke louder than your trust. Or maybe it was sadness. You spoke words of hopelessness, convincing yourself and others that things would never get better. And later, when the emotions calmed, you wished you could take it back, but the words had already landed. That's why silence in these moments is not avoidance, it's wisdom. It's saying, I'm not going to let this storm inside me make decisions that my clear mind will have to regret later. Silence doesn't mean you don't feel. It doesn't mean you're shutting yourself down. It means you're giving yourself space. Space to breathe, space to think, space to let the waves settle so you can see the shore again. Have you noticed how emotions exaggerate everything? A small disagreement feels like betrayal. A small failure feels like the end of your future. A delay feels like denial. That's what emotions do. They magnify. They distort. They take something small and make it feel massive. And if you speak while everything looks massive, your words will sound massive too, blown out of proportion, dripping with drama, carrying weight that isn't even real. Silence saves you from that. I remember hearing a phrase once, never make permanent decisions based on temporary feelings. The same is true with words. Never say permanent things when your emotions are temporary, because when you calm down, you might realize the problem wasn't as big as you thought. You might realize the relationship wasn't as broken, the opportunity wasn't as lost, the situation wasn't as hopeless. But the words you said, they can't be taken back. That's why the strongest people are not the ones who never feel. The strongest people are the ones who know how to pause in the middle of feeling. They don't let fear make their choices. They don't let anger write their sentences. They don't let sadness have the microphone. They pause, they stay silent. And when they finally speak, their words come from clarity, not chaos. Picture this. You're in the middle of a heated situation. Your chest is tight, your mind is racing, your emotions are screaming, and right then you choose silence, you take a breath, you walk away, you give yourself time. What happens? The storm doesn't last forever. It passes. And when it does, your mind clears. You see things differently. You realize half the things you wanted to say weren't true. Half the reactions you felt weren't necessary. And because you chose silence, you didn't have to clean up a mess of words you didn't mean. Silence is not running away. It's stepping back to gain control. It's protecting the people you love from words that your emotions want to throw, but your heart doesn't really mean. It's protecting your future from decisions made in a fog. It's protecting your peace from damage that doesn't need to happen. You see, emotions are a part of being human. We can't escape them, and we shouldn't try to. But what we can do is master the space between feeling and speaking. That space is where wisdom lives. That space is where peace begins. That space is where silence becomes your strength. And here's the beauty: when you practice silence in those moments, you build trust. People begin to see you as steady, reliable, someone who doesn't let waves toss them around. They know your words won't be reckless, your decisions won't be impulsive. They know you have the discipline to hold back until the storm has passed. And that kind of trust is priceless. So the next time emotions start to rise and you feel that desperate urge to let them out through words, pause. Don't text, don't post, don't lash out, don't explain. Just be still, stay silent, give yourself time. And when the emotions calm, ask yourself, what do I really want to say? What do I really believe? What will actually build, not break? Because silence is not about being quiet forever. It's about choosing to wait until your words are worth speaking. It's about making sure your words are carriers of truth, not carriers of storms. And that's what separates the wise from the impulsive. The impulsive speak whatever they feel. The wise speak only after silence has tested their words. And the impact of wisdom always outlasts the noise of emotion. So remember this: emotions are visitors. They knock, they enter, they make noise, but they don't stay forever. Don't give them the power to build your future. Don't give them the microphone of your mouth. Sometimes the strongest, bravest, most powerful thing you can do is stay silent until the storm passes, because silence today saves you from regret tomorrow. There's a certain power in doing without announcing, a strength that doesn't need a microphone, a quiet confidence that lets actions do the talking. The truth is, when you are building something real, when you are working on yourself, when you are chasing your goals, you don't need to explain it to everybody. You don't need to defend it. You don't need to convince anyone, because results have a voice of their own, and it's far louder than any promise you could ever make. We live in a world where everyone feels the need to broadcast. People post about what they're going to do before they've even taken the first step. They talk about their goals, their plans, their dreams, almost as if saying it out loud will make it real. But the truth is, talking doesn't create results. Talking doesn't move you forward. Talking doesn't change your life, doing does. And the more you talk, the less you actually move. Have you ever noticed that the people who are truly successful rarely announce what they're about to do? They don't spend time defending themselves, proving themselves, or bragging about their next move. They let the work speak. They let the results walk into the room before they do. And when the results arrive, there is no debate, there is no argument, there is no need for explanation. Success proves itself. Silence in this context is not about hiding. It's about discipline. It's about saying, I don't need applause while I'm building. I don't need validation while I'm growing. I don't need anyone else's permission to take these steps, because applause doesn't build foundations. Validation doesn't create discipline. And permission doesn't get you to the finish line. Your consistency does. Think of a tree. It doesn't announce when it's growing roots. You don't see it. It's happening underground, quietly, slowly, steadily. But those roots are what allow the tree to rise tall, to stand through storms, to bear fruit. And that's how your growth works too. Most of it happens in silence, where no one can see. And yet that's the most important part. Because without silent growth, without the unseen work, there's nothing for the world to see later. So many people waste energy explaining their grind. They argue with doubters. They fight to prove that they're serious. They try to convince others to believe in them. But why? Belief is not borrowed, it's earned. And the best way to earn it is not through speeches, not through explanations, but through actions. Through showing up every day, through consistency, through results that no one can deny. Silence here also protects you. When you talk too much about what you're planning, you open yourself to unnecessary pressure. You give space for criticism, for doubt, for voices that will question you before you've even had the chance to start. And sometimes those voices get inside your head and slow you down. But when you stay silent, when you keep your work private, you protect your focus, you protect your momentum, you protect your peace. And when the time comes when your results are visible, the silence ends. Because the results speak for you. And they speak louder than anything you could have said. They silence the critics, they silence the doubters, they silence the questions. And you don't even have to lift your voice. Think about the people in your life who doubted you before. Remember the times when someone said you couldn't do it, that you weren't capable, that you'd never make it. Did arguing with them change anything? Did explaining yourself convince them? Probably not. But the moment you achieved it, the moment you walked across that stage, the moment you signed that deal, the moment you transformed yourself, there was nothing left to say, because the result was undeniable. And that's the power of letting actions speak. Now, this doesn't mean you never share your journey. It doesn't mean you hide forever. It simply means you don't waste energy on unnecessary words. You don't speak just to prove. You don't talk just to fill silence. You move in silence until there's something real to show. And then you let the reality do the talking. There's a quiet confidence in that way of living. It says, I know where I'm going and I don't need to shout about it. It says, I value progress more than attention. It says, you'll see when the time comes. And that quiet confidence is magnetic. People respect it because it's rare. In a world of noise, silence stands out. So the next time you feel the urge to defend yourself, to explain your goals, to convince someone why you're taking a certain path, stop. You don't owe them a speech. You don't owe them reassurance. You don't owe them proof. What you owe yourself is discipline. What you owe yourself is consistency. What you owe yourself is the space to build without distraction. And when you've built it, when the results arrive, you won't need to explain. You won't need to defend. You won't need to say a word, because your actions will be the loudest voice in the room. Remember this, noise fades, but results remain. Words get forgotten, but impact doesn't. And the most powerful statements you'll ever make are not with your mouth, they're with your life. So be silent while you're building, and let your success speak when the time is right. There are moments in life when the best response you can give is no response at all. You'll meet people who crave attention more than they crave truth, who want a reaction more than they want resolution. They'll poke at you, they'll push your buttons, they'll say things not because they believe them, but because they want you to react. And in those moments, silence is not weakness, it's power. Attention seekers thrive on noise, they thrive on conflict, they thrive on the energy you give them. And the more you feed it, the louder they become. But when you stay silent, when you refuse to give them what they want, you starve the fire. You take away the fuel that keeps them alive, and suddenly, the drama dies where it began. Think about it. How many arguments in your life lasted longer than they should have simply because you kept responding? How many times did someone get under your skin and you couldn't help but snap back, explain, defend, or attack? And the more you spoke, the worse it got. Why? Because they weren't looking for understanding, they were looking for attention. And you gave it to them. Silence in those moments is discipline. It's saying, I don't need to validate this with my words. It's saying, I won't give you the satisfaction of controlling my emotions. It's saying, your attempt to pull me into your storm doesn't work on me anymore. That silence is strength, it's composure, it's leadership. Now, silence doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're wise enough to choose your battles. Because not every argument deserves your voice. Not every insult deserves your energy. Not every person deserves a seat at the table of your attention. Silence is the filter that separates the noise from the truth. When someone is desperate for attention, what they want is to pull you off balance. They want you to match their energy. They want to see you frustrated, upset, out of character. And if you fall into that trap, they win. But if you remain silent, if you keep your peace, if you refuse to be pulled into their chaos, you win. Because you've proven something not just to them but to yourself, that your emotions belong to you, not to anyone else. Think of it like this: attention seekers throw bait. They dangle insults, they spread gossip, they provoke you with drama. And when you respond, you take the bait. But when you stay silent, you walk past the trap, you keep moving. And nothing is more frustrating to someone desperate for attention than realizing they don't control you. I remember hearing this once: not everything that demands your attention deserves it. That truth can change your life, because your attention is precious. It's energy, it's focus, it's time. And once you give it away, you don't get it back. So why spend it on people who only want to drain you? Why waste it on people who don't care about resolution, only reaction? Protecting your silence is protecting your peace. There's also another level here. When you remain silent, you expose the other person. Without your reaction, their actions stand on their own. Their words echo without your defense, and often people see the truth more clearly when you don't fight back. The desperate become obvious when you refuse to engage. Your silence becomes a mirror that reflects their behavior. And here's the beautiful part: silence gives you control of the room. When everyone else is shouting, when everyone else is arguing, when everyone else is fighting to be heard, the one who remains silent holds the real power. Because silence draws curiosity. Silence demands respect. Silence makes people wonder what you're thinking, why you're not shaken, why you're still calm. It makes them pay attention to you without you saying a word. This doesn't mean you never speak up. It doesn't mean you let people walk all over you. There is a time to speak truth, a time to stand firm, a time to defend what matters. But you must know the difference between someone seeking truth and someone seeking attention. One deserves your voice, the other deserves your silence. So the next time someone tries to drag you into their chaos, remember your silence is your shield. Don't hand over your energy. Don't let them see you flinch. Don't give them the reward of reaction. Instead, hold your peace. Breathe. Stay calm. Let them make noise while you remain still. And watch how quickly their power fades when you refuse to feed it. In the end, silence is not about ignoring people. It's about valuing yourself. It's about saying, my energy is too valuable to waste on noise. It's about protecting your focus, your goals, your peace of mind. And that's something no one desperate for attention can ever take from you, unless you give it away. So choose silence when others crave reaction. Choose discipline when others crave drama. Choose peace when others crave chaos. Because silence in those moments isn't empty. It's full of strength. It's full of wisdom, and it says more than words ever could. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is not weakness. Silence is wisdom. And when you learn to master silence in these 6 situations, you step into a different kind of power. You learn when to walk away from conflict, when to listen instead of react, when to hold your tongue in anger, when to let your actions do the talking, when to guard your growth, and when to rise above people who are desperate for your attention. Every one of those moments is a test of your discipline, a test of your self-control, a test of your focus. And the truth is, most people fail these tests. Most people give away their peace because they don't know how to stay silent. But not you, not anymore. You've seen the value of silence. You've seen how it protects you, how it strengthens you, how it turns chaos into clarity. The world is noisy. Everyone is talking, arguing, proving, defending, reacting. But the one who learns to be silent at the right time, that's the one who rises above the noise. That's the one who carries influence. That's the one who commands respect. So from today, carry this with you. You don't always need to answer back. You don't always need to defend yourself. You don't always need to explain. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do, the wisest, the boldest, the most disciplined thing you can do, is to say nothing at all. Because silence isn't the absence of power. Silence is the proof that you already have it.